How you doing, good people? This is the 8-Bit Animal. And today we're going to talk about a game based on the most popular sport in the world. I mean, regardless of what the NFL is doing with expansion and games in Europe and the NBA's expansion into Canada, which one of those key teams came back to the US as quickly as possible, we got one sport that everyone in the world absolutely adores. Everyone. And that's football or soccer. Well, there was a point where there weren't a lot of good soccer games on the NES. And there was also a point in time where there weren't a lot of good baseball games or good basketball games, stuff like that. So one company, one publisher that took up the mantle for providing good sports games on the NES, even though they never made an American football title, was Jaleco. Jaleco gave us Bases Loaded, which, while it was a buggy dud in Japan, was a masterpiece in America. They gave us the second tennis title released on the NES in Racket Attack, which had fantastic TV style presentation. It was a pretty solid effort. And they gave us today's game, which, I mean, there were other soccer games on the NES, but when this one hit in 1988-89, around that time frame, it was a pretty big deal because Jaleco had already cemented themselves with Bases Loaded, with Racket Attack, with Hoops. They had already cemented themselves. In addition to with some of their arcade ports like Astyanax, they were starting to get love from the gaming public. And today's game is a good example of something that they did really, really well. Today, we're going to take a look at Goal! I'm not doing that the whole time. Now, in Goal, you play as one of several national teams, so this is kind of like a World Cup style situation. In exhibition play, in tournament play, there is a just standard versus mode. There's also a shootout mode where you just take a shot, just take turns dueling with goalies. Shot on goal, most goals win or whatever. This game, while it doesn't have a whole lot of like penalties and stuff like that in there, like more recent fare, like stuff from the 90s and whatnot, this is actually a really well-rounded game. Jaleco and the development partner with this game, Tosei, they started to get it right. Tosei, after a point, just started pumping out pretty decent titles for some of these publishers, and Goal is an example. And for whatever reason, I was intimidated by Goal. I mean, I knew nothing about soccer. I really don't know anything about soccer now. All I know is get the ball downfield, get it in the goal, and then wildly celebrate, and hopefully you don't injure yourself while celebrating. But for what it's worth, this is a really well constructed game. I played around with it actually for the first time a few days ago. played it most recently earlier today and actually had a pretty good time with it. It's easy to follow the action. It's easy to know what you're supposed to be doing. Some of the scrolling can be a little choppy, but I mean, there's a lot happening. There's a lot happening as far as this huge game field and all of the sprites running around on field. So that's to be expected. But for what it's worth, Goal is a very solid soccer game, and it held up, and it still kind of holds up. I mean, it's not Super Sidekicks 3 on the Neo Geo or, any of the more recent Winning 11 titles or Pro Evolution Soccer titles or any of that. But for an 8-bit soccer title, Goal is pretty good and still holds up, as does Nintendo World Cup. But we've talked about that one before. Now, if you're interested in getting a copy of Goal, you can get a copy of Goal actually between $5 and $15. You can get yourself a loose copy of Goal. Its sequel, Goal 2, is a little more pricey, about $30-$40, but that's still, because it was so late in the life cycle, that's not bad. But yeah, for my money, Goal is a very good value, and it's a really solid pickup if you're into sports games, particularly if you're into soccer titles. So yeah, if you're into soccer, check this one out. This has been the 8-Bit Animal, and I'll catch you beautiful people tomorrow. Tomorrow, like the man said, if you're guilty, you're dead.